Have you ever been in that situation when you get to a company and then you start seeing like a mess in everything and every processes, and you were hired like just, I don't know, to automate something, and you start like watching like, okay, you have a real problem, dude, here, and how do you go to the client and tell that?
I've been doing this for a while now.
Don't be humble. Tell us how long have
And
you been doing this?
I mean, I've been doing Ruby on Rails for 15 years now.
Oh my God, right?
So what I was going is that I have experienced a lot of different phases,
Yeah.
in how the technology has been evolved. When I joined the project, and I can actually see in which of those phases they are, like
Yeah.
when they started to do unit tests, for example, or
Mhm.
they started to automate the dependency management. They started to have some scaling problems.
Yeah.
So what I usually try to do if they hand me over a new project, what I start to do, the first things I do is to see what is automated. Does it have any test coverage? How the deployments are performed, how the infrastructure gets deployed. A good project needs to be replicable.
Imagine this. Your startup is finally taking off. The roadmap is coming together, the team is delivering, and new clients are rolling in. But with every new feature, there is a tiny tremor in the backend. Every sprint feels heavier. Every just a quick hotfix adds a debt that no one wants to look at. And suddenly, you're faced with a dilemma. Keep pushing the same architecture or hit pause and rethink before everything collapses. Today, we're talking about just that, the point where scaling your product could either make or break your entire operation. And to tackle that topic, we have someone who knows firsthand how to deal with the technical chaos of rapid growth. Edwin is the principal engineer at one of the biggest consultancy tech companies in Latin America. He's the guy who steps in when your code base starts looking like a Jenga tower and the product can handle one more feature without tipping over. He knows what it takes to make the technical side of scaling sustainable. Also, Edwin's not just a tech brain. He's the guy who, when things get crazy, he drops a meme in the group chat just to lighten the mood. Edwin Cruz, I'm really happy to have you here, right? I was really looking forward to have this chat with you. Welcome to the scaling dilemma. And the other day I was watching this episode that you had with one of our friends, Hugo.
Don
Right?
Chambitas,
Yes, that guy. Yeah. So hello to Don Chambitas, by the way. And it was really inspiring, like listening to your story regarding how you became a dev, and then you are the principal engineer of one of the
Right.
like the biggest firms in Latin America regarding consultancy services, right? Welcome,
Yeah.
and thank you for having.
Thank you.
for
I'm
being
happy
here.
to be here. I'm always eager to share knowledge. If at some point it's useful for someone, then I'm more than happy.
Yes, it is. It is actually really useful. My kid, I told you behind camera, is starting to become a developer. And the first time that I listened to your episode, let's say you have to listen to this guy. Yes. And that takes me to this moment, Edwin. Like, I'm really curious about this. How did you go from being a developer to becoming a principal engineer at your company?
Yeah, so I read a book like a while ago. This book is The Passionate Programmer, and it talks, like all the journey that somebody went through. And each episode, each chapter is one specific topic about how to become a good professional, not even a good programmer, a good professional
In general.
in general. So from there, I was like while I was reading it, I got like a super inspired as well, because it was talking about how you can actually embrace your profession, how you can be useful to the business, how you can help other people, how you can communicate with other people, because it's super common that in our profession we usually use technical words. You
Yeah.
know, and for an accountant or for a lawyer, it's super hard to understand us. Even when we try to speak in English,
Yeah.
we don't talk the same English. You know, like a commit is a git commit is different from a commitment in a law,
Yeah, exactly.
in an accountant world.
Mm-hmm.
So in that book, I was reading that we need to talk like the audience. You know, like the real challenge is how you can communicate your ideas.
Yeah.
And I think I became good at like connecting two different worlds, you know, like the business world and the technical world. I'm like at the bridge between them. They talk to me in their terms, and I talk to the technical people in their terms, and the other way around. I can translate from technical people to the business. So I think some of the things that I pushed my career like in a good way was not only focusing on coding, you know, like I'm trying to be useful, you know, try to be there if somebody is talking about, is complaining, for example, if somebody is complaining about how our reports takes 2 hours on Friday night because they need to do the last thing of the week, then you start thinking like, oh, why is that? You know, I actually went through that experience, and I managed to, just by being curious, I managed to lower that report from 2 hours like down to 5 minutes.
Okay.
So and that was just because I was just there, I was just listening, I was, you know, like
being present,
being there, being useful. And in this book, like I was telling you, there is a chapter which is like reading other people's mind.
Oh.
Like you know, you can be at a meeting, somebody will be talking, and you start thinking how you can actually help to solve the problem. And whenever you raise your hand, hey, you can do that. Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
You read my mind, you know, because it was just because you were present, you were there, you were trying to help.
You weren't thinking about the latest TikTok you saw.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. So beyond the practicing the technical part, I think that something that pushed my career was just like being present in other people's conversations, you know, like trying to understand it really good what was happening.
And I believe that that's a really important soft skill when it comes to help other companies. That is what your company does, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, at the end, we're paid to help the business. So if they make more money, they can pay us more money.
Yeah.
They can hire more of guys. That's pretty much like a endless, you know, like a cycle where we can help them. They get more business. They ask more for us. So yeah.
Well, probably there are watching us or listening us probably don't know exactly what your company does, right? So in big terms, can you explain?
Yeah, in big terms, we help companies to get to the finish line faster.
Okay.
What I mean with that is that, for example, we fill the gaps, the technical gaps that they are not able to fulfill, or it's a temporary solution or a temporary need.
Okay.
For example, we have had some clients where their engineering team, they focus on making a specific thing, let's say a camera.
Yeah.
They didn't want to
like actually an actual camera, like the hardware. Okay.
The hardware or the software to manage the camera and special effects and all that. So they were not interested in taking the responsibility of keeping the site up. So we came with them, and our responsibility was to keep their website up and running.
Okay, good.
So, you know, the website was not part of their core engineering. So we were there to fill the gap. And we are pretty much like I like to sell ourselves like we act as an extension of their teams.
Okay. So
we act like if we were their employees, so we're there, we are fully allocated with them, so we just help them to get there faster.
Yeah. So, and coming back to this being present situation that you mentioned already, and taking into account what your company does, is like, for example, you are in this big company, in this big team, and you are present and you are listening. When it's time to raise your hand, because it's kind of like, I don't know, that's my impression. It's like really you're walking like in thin ice when you give your your opinion on things that you are not hired for, don't you think?
Yeah, it gets tricky, because you may join a project and you may be listening and some problems they are having, and you must be thinking like, oh, why they hadn't tried this?
This, right. So
But
that is pretty obvious to you.
Yeah, but at the end they had already.
Okay.
So it's it's super hard where to jump in and actually try to come up with something useful. So what I like to do is to actually take notes. I go back to my station and I try to do a lot of proofs of concepts. I try to do some quick code, some experiments in the console, make sure that the data that I was thinking it's actually there and all that. So once I have more solid understanding that could be done, I can actually go and present my findings with.
Because that's actually consulting, right? Not just like stuff augmentation and just do whatever they tell you to do. Like it's, I'm a consultant, and they can add to the business, right? Yes, that's part of what you do.
Yeah, so sometimes this is an indirect outcome because, like I said, sometimes a client might hire a team of us and they are just, okay, you can just do this project. It's a fixed scope, it's super well defined and all that, but still we can see a lot of different issues that they are having. So it's like, should I jump in? Should I just stay away? It's not my business and all that. So it gets tricky.
Whenever you get the whole idea of how the business is working and what do they need and whatever, and you get your hands raised and this kind of stuff, that they tell you like, okay, no. Is that always a bad outcome, or they just survive, like ignoring your recommendation?
Well, personally, I hadn't been in a situation where they pretty much told me to step aside. That hasn't been the case.
Okay.
So they are always listening, and they are like, you know what, we tried that, and that didn't work because of this.
Yeah.
Oh, makes sense. I didn't know that. So they tried. So yeah, usually in a profession, we are not that jealous about what we do. At the end, what we try to do is to make something to work. It's not like we are our positions. They are not like
competing to each other.
More than competing, it's like I'm gonna be replaced by somebody.
Okay.
If that somebody makes better job than me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I read recently a guy was his mantra to hire new team members. He was like I need to hire a guy that gives me the imposter syndrome. They are really good that you feel that you are the
okay. Yeah.
the stupid one.
Yeah, no.
And it's kind of true. I mean, at the end in this profession, if somebody is actually very good at something and they can just do it better, I mean, be my guest. I'm not gonna
of course. Because at the end, you are trying to hire people to add value to the project you had in mind, right? So yeah, soft skills all the way. What do you think, right? What do you think that is like one of the most desired soft skills that companies, like the clients that you get, are looking in a consultancy team?
Yeah, so there is this bad impression at some consultancy companies where their sales team is not part of the engineering team, so they go there and promise something just to close the deal.
They don't even have an idea, right? Of
I mean, I need a 10 years experience of a guy
with the technology that has been like
Grok or
exactly.
So I mean, it's by nature. All the businesses they try to make more money. So I feel that some companies even they try to put some timing bombs. This needs to blow up in 3 months so we can get more business.
Oh no!
So they can the software started to add weird, fix it so they can move business. But the thing is that the most desired thing that I consider for consultancy companies is how they can actually make the product to live by itself. If somebody else actually start adding more things, how they can realize that something else broke by accident. unit tests, automations, audits, how to stay up to date, and all that. So if a company can actually deliver something that somebody else can take it out and actually still perform as usual,
Yeah.
then that's one of the most essential things.
Have you ever been in that situation when you get to a company and then you start seeing like a mess in everything and every processes, every situation they got, and you were hired like just, I don't know, to automate something, and you start like watching like, okay, you have a real problem, dude, here, and how do you go to the client and tell that?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for a while now. So
Don't be humble. Tell us how long
and
you've been doing this.
I mean, I've been doing Ruby on Rails for 15 years now.
Oh my god, right.
So I have lived multiple phases.
How long has Ruby on Rails been around? The Rails framework has been around
It's
like...
already 20 something years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started doing this in 2009 or so.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, so it's been a while. So what I was going is that I have experienced a lot of different phases, in how the technology has been evolving. So when I joined the project, and I can actually see in which of those phases they are, like when they started to do unit tests, for example, or they started to automate the dependency management. They started to have some scaling problems. So what I usually try to do if they hand me over a new project, what I start to do, the first things I do is to see what is automated. Does it have any test coverage? How the deployments are performed? How the infrastructure gets deployed? Because everything needs to be a good project needs to be replicable. If somebody hacks into your account and you need to bring the site up somewhere else, you need to somehow make sure that you can actually bring the same that you had previously to other account. So to do that, we need to do a lot of automation, make sure everything is repeatable. It doesn't depend on humans to remember to do something. Like every time that we deploy, we need to run this command manually. So that's like a good path to a failure, because the moment that human is not there, everything just fails. That's one of the things that I always do the first time I join a new project, and just ask how the deployment process is done.
So you mean like identifying the phases they are, right, like in their let's say life term of the business, right?
Yeah.
And what are the phases? I mean, are there like many, or just a few, or what?
Well, speaking about how the Ruby on Rails world has been evolving, I can see some phases. For example, there is this gem which is bundle, which it pretty much manages all the dependencies. Like if you build a Ruby on Rails application right now, you have this gem with X version, this other gem with Y version. So everybody gets the same version. So before bundler, there was nothing. So we had to remember which version of each gem, each gem we needed to have. So that's one phase. And then all this boom about the single page applications, where everything was wanted to be in the client side, pure APIs in the back end, the front end with only JavaScript and blah blah blah, and then the microservices. And then a criticism about the monoliths, but then they are starting to go back to monoliths.
Oh man,
so
it's just like trending, right? Like, what is
so
trending, right?
I can easily spot in which of the phases they are.
So speaking of which, what's an unpopular technical decision you've made that turned out to be key in the success of a project?
I like to not to rely on humans to remember something. So I think something that I have helped a lot in different projects is automate as much as possible. Yeah, for example, usually one project at least takes 6 months to be built, to be completed, and then the stabilization phase and all that. So let's say 8 months. So the moment you started and the moment you deliver to production, it's been 8 months. So the rate right now in the technology is the growth rate is, like a super fast.
Yeah.
Every day new technologies are emerging.
Yeah.
So imagine what could happen in 8 months. So
Dude, it's really hard to keep up with
yeah,
new
so
things.
what I like to do is to make sure how we can get the latest things at the moment they get released.
Yeah.
The latest Ruby version, the latest Ruby on Rails version, the latest dependency version. Like make sure that a human doesn't have to remember when to upgrade the Rails version.
Yeah.
So something that it's actually proactively daily making checks. It's not a human, it's just a process. Hey, there is a new version. Okay, here you go. You need to add it.
Yeah.
Or unit test, or even, for example, nowadays, there are all these policies about, like a personal data, and like a personal identifiable data, like nobody has to see my first name, last name, and birthday, because that's super, super, like a critical.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that that's me, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so um, to automate, to detect when we may be leaking, something like that.
Yeah.
Or automate to run the whole test suite, just to make sure that every single time we deploy production, at least we don't introduce the bugs that we already have fixed.
Yes.
So I think that's been one of the key pieces that I've been contributing to projects. Try to automate as much as possible.
Yes. So let me understand this principal engineer role that you have. Do you actually manage people, or you are just like a Jedi master that tells, okay, young Padawan, you have to do this with this client, you have to be like that with that client, or what is the kind of support that you get to your team and get to the client?
Principal engineers, they are pretty much like the super technical guys. In every single career we have, at some point we need to fork either for the management position, or just keeping the lane of the technical position, just making it hands-on.
Yes.
Like in every single business, but the nature doesn't matter. But you need to you need to decide whether to keep hands-on,
Yeah,
or
going
do
to the
something
manage.
else
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
management world.
Uh-huh.
So for example, the VP of engineering, they are more like a management, because they need to put processes, document something, like generate reports and all that. The CTOs, they are the ones that they are always experimenting with new technologies, trying to make sure that that the architecture is well enough, or they are evolving. They don't usually report, or they don't have reportees. They are just working by themselves, because it's the most capable technical person.
Yeah, sure.
And also there are the principal engineers, or some other companies that may call it senior engineers level something, at the highest level,
like AA or whatever.
Yeah, so those guys, they are like the most technical skilled engineers, where they can actually work with a group of other engineers to build something really good. It's like the CTO is like a kind of experimenting what could be done.
Yeah.
And the principal engineer is actually
doing the
making
same
reality of those things, and making sure that the team is actually understand the concept. They are committing new code that is in good quality, performance, respecting a lot of design patterns. We can actually spot a lot of new things, because it's just patterns, like I was saying.
And speaking about like being managing or giving advice to these new guys, well, not new guys, but these other team members, right, that are not as you, principal engineers, what new technical challenges come up when your team goes hybrid or near shore? Like what's the environment, the culture challenges that you guys face?
Personally, I think that this comes back to the things I was saying about automating as much as possible, because it doesn't really matter if your teammate is next to you, or half the way all to South America, or the other part of the world. The mantra that you need to have in your team, and you need to actually try to to contribute is that you need to add certain checkpoints to make sure that somebody else don't screw up your things.
Yeah, I get it.
Either unit tests or linters or processes or something. If I write code to generate a report and this report gathers a lot of different information, I need to make sure that if somebody changes the origin of the data, gets notified that they changed something and they affected my report, and that needs to be automated because I'm not going to be there forever. So unit tests help a lot. A lot of specs, like spec documents, they also need to be there. So one of the challenges when a new team is actually trying to be, we call it proficient, like when you can actually contributing new stuff. So if you have all these checkpoints in place, the team can be productive way faster than if we don't have them, because they can actually do a lot of experiments and they can just notice like a super fast whenever they screw up with something.
That's how you actually keep quality and speed when not everybody's in the same room, right?
Yes, yeah.
And do you have kind of onboarding or manual or like these best practices like documented or everything, or is like just like you have to do this?
We like to get behind a saying which is like this is the industry standard.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's the term. Yeah.
So we say that, like I try to not to explain things, but the Rails communities, it's different than most of the communities out there. So we like to document a lot of things. We like to share a lot of things. So some guys and companies, they have invested a lot in documenting things and making sure that it's repeatable. So by industry standard, I mean we're following these concepts, and it's not just a document. It's sometimes we already have tools to make sure that we are complying with all that. For example, the classical endless debate about tabs or spaces.
Okay, yeah, man. So to that specific level of detail, right?
Yeah. So the curly braces, the same line or the next
or
line.
the next one.
So to avoid all like conflicts between engineers, to do that, we use tools that the community wrote to make sure that everybody's writing
same thing
in the same
terms
or format, the same coding style. We call it coding style. So that's how we don't get into a fight between each other trying to debate how it's done. The industry standard is this.
Is this right? Yes. You just have to follow the rules in the standard, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be a professional, right? I get it. Yeah. And when do you think it is the right time to get a consultancy firm to help you with your startup?
So that's a tricky question because you can bring people to help you at any point, but the key question here is at what point you are prepared to bring people and they can actually be helping the business and you don't become a bottleneck, because if you bring a consultancy firm and you don't have any automation because you were just going solo, you were the only one building things, you know how all things work. But if you start bringing people, you don't have anything, like I was saying, automated, then you are going to pretty much waste resources because the consultancy firm won't be able to help you. Or you can actually ask them, I don't have anything to scale. Help me from this point forward. That's like the answer for me. It's either you make the road so others can join you, or you ask to help you to make the road.
I get it. Like a guide, right?
Yeah, because it's super usual for startups where there is a single technical co-founder where it's pretty much that.
Or just a bunch of friends. Right.
Yeah, a bunch of friends. He's the only coder in the party, and then let's build this.
I have an idea, right?
Yeah. So they just go there. They are the only ones building the software and all that. But since he's the one that knows everything, he knows when he may break something.
Yeah.
But if you bring somebody else to help you, you're gonna be the bottleneck because you didn't put any checkpoints that I was saying previously that they may realize that they broke something, for example.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky part when bringing consultancy. Either they help you to build the road, or you get some sort of like a road and then bring everybody else and then just go faster.
And how can we tell that a team is delivering features fast enough?
Somebody may say that this is where all these metrics, measurements, and all that
KPIs and things like that.
KPIs and all that are coming to the game. But I personally like the concept of time to production.
Okay.
You know, how much it takes from when the idea was born until when it gets into production.
Yeah.
Because it pretty much tests your whole process, your whole methodology, everything. If you have your process of analyzing new features, creating the requirements, polishing the requirements, and all that, if that's working good, then you move fast enough.
Okay.
And then if your technical team has done a lot of work in terms of making sure that you don't break things unexpectedly, you can adapt the code faster. You make you make the code flexible enough. So if all those things they come into the same outcome, then the time to production is shorter.
Yeah.
But if you don't have processes to how to define the requirements or how to analyze the requirements, if you are just throwing ideas and you don't get mature anything, or your team pretty much they do just demos with hard-coded things, nothing works. It's just like a screens that do nothing.
Yeah.
So the time to production gets like delayed by a lot because they need to rewrite a lot. They need to make sure that something else is working. So I think that's like the key part of any team in any vertical.
Yeah.
The time between when the idea is born and the time it gets into production.
That's really interesting. The other day I was listening to this guy that said that real power, talking about human beings, right? The real power resides in those terms. Like, for example, the time you say that you're going to do something, the time you say that you're going to do something, and the gap between actually doing the thing. Right. It's like, for example, like they say God, like he spoke and then boom, something was done. Right. So when you think about an idea and then you
put to material.
Exactly. That's how power, speaking about teams, works as well. Right.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it pretty much put into the test how well your machinery oil is,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If you are missing a key part, then that's gonna hurt
or maybe you're not missing the part, but you have the wrong part, or you have, I don't know.
Yeah, you need to replace
that
whole
part. Oh my God.
system.
Yeah,
The
that's
whole
cool.
engine.
Yeah, I
your
get it.
seats they were leather in a tropical
Yeah, I know.
weather, so it gets ugly. So yeah, I mean that pretty much that's the final test of your whole process of developing product.
Yes. And what's one lesson about scaling you wish you had learned earlier?
One of the things that I push a lot in all the teams I join is to bring, if they don't have already, the concept of feature flags.
Okay.
A feature flag pretty much controls where something is enabled or disabled. So if we are building new stuff, we can actually send the code to production at any point, but behind the feature flag. That means is that we can enable that feature at our will, not at the deployment time. So in this way, when we are, for example, sending a new feature and this feature turns out to have a performance issue, we can just shoot it down like a super fast. We pretty much flip at all, and then that's disabled, so the rest of the system doesn't get affected. So the concept of feature flags is super powerful, and that pretty much helps you to make sure that if something goes really bad, you can react even faster. You know,
Yeah.
like at the end, at some point I read that trying to optimize early is overkill because you don't really know how the users are going to use the system.
Uh-huh.
So if you spend a lot of time making sure that the system won't be hard in terms of performance, then you're gonna waste a lot of time because you don't really know what's gonna happen in a production environment. So that's inevitable. So the thing that you can do is actually put in place a mechanism where you can reduce the risk of affecting real people, you know, because the feature flags is super powerful. And besides that, a lot of instrumentation, you know, like from business metrics, from the database, from, you know, the execution time, from the network, a lot of different instrumentation just to make sure that everything gets measured and we know exactly where the bottlenecks are.
Okay. Edwin, so we are almost on the finish line here. So this is a question that I always ask every person that is in the Scaling Dilemma podcast and the Scaling Dilemma show. If you could put I don't know, a pin and post it on a billboard for every startup founder to see, what would it say?
Oh, that's a good one. I will say something around execution time increases the odds to succeed. You know, because we come back to the things I was saying to the time to production. You know, if they can actually keep that under control, their execution time is faster, so they can beat the competition. So I think that will be it.
Wow, I really like that. I really like that. Edwin, thanks a lot for being in Scaling Dilemma. See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Bye. So there you have it, scaling your product without breaking it. It's a tough balance. Edwin's insight reminds us that getting the technical side right is essential if you want to keep growing without burning out your systems or your team. But there's the thing. Once you've got your architecture in place, the next challenge is finding the right talent to keep things moving. How do you make sure your team can grow sustainably without losing control? In the next episode, we'll talk with Carlos Rocha, CEO of one of the biggest tech consultancies in Latin America, about the strategic side of scaling. He'll break down why nearshoring isn't just a cost-saving move. It's about gaining control, speed, and staying competitive in a shifting global market. If you ever wonder whether adding talent from another country is the right move for your startup, you won't want to miss it. This was the Scaling Dilemma. Stay tuned.